I'm Julietta. I'm 31. And on my 16th birthday, my mother drowned my cat in the bathtub because I refused to cancel a therapy appointment. She said she was sick of my drama. My father filmed everything, not to stop her, to show me how I look when I make a scene. I spent 15 years without touching a cat, without being able to look at one without feeling nausea. Until I found the video on my father's old phone, uploaded to a family cloud he'd forgotten I had access to. It wasn't just my cat. It was 7 cats over 15 years, all mine, all killed every time I defied my family. My mother used them as messengers of obedience, and my father filmed them all. He had a collection. The last time the cat was named Sombra, he was the only one who had survived because I had stopped defying. I had stopped being me. But Sombra's video had something else. My voice, off camera, from when I was 16, saying something I didn't remember. I'm going to kill them all. It wasn't a threat. It was a promise that took me 15 years to keep. And when I kept it, I didn't use my hands. I used theirs. I used their own collection against them. I grew up in a house where love was conditional on silence. My mother, Alina, was a devout Catholic who used religion as a weapon, who prayed rosaries for my soul while breaking my spirit, who spoke about family unity while dividing us into useful and troublesome. My father, Carlos, was an accountant who collected moments the way he collected receipts, organized, cataloged, never shared with anyone who might challenge his narrative. My older sister, Diana, was the perfect one. Married at 23, 2 children, never defied anything, never questioned the prayers, never made scenes at birthday dinners. I was the troublesome one. The sensitive one, the one who needed therapy, according to my school counselor, according to the teacher who noticed I flinched when doors slammed, according to the nurse who saw the scratches on my arms and asked questions I couldn't answer. Therapy was my rebellion. Therapy was my secret space. Therapy was where I learned that families weren't supposed to hurt you systematically, that love wasn't supposed to be a transaction, that my flinching wasn't normal. And therapy was where I had a cat. The first one was when I was 8. A stray orange tabby I found behind the school dumpster, half-starved, with a torn ear and eyes that trusted nothing. I named him Saul. I hid him in the garage, fed him scraps, carried him in my backpack to therapy sessions where my therapist, Dr. Morales, let him sit on her windowsill while I talked. Saul was my confessor. Saul was my witness. Saul was the only creature who saw me cry and didn't tell me I was dramatic. Alina found out when I was 9. She followed me to the garage, saw the food bowl, the blanket, the cat who ran to me when I opened the door. She didn't say anything, she smiled. The next morning Saul was gone. He escaped, she said, serving breakfast with the same precision she always used. Cats are like that, you shouldn't get attached. I found his collar in the trash. I didn't cry, I learned. The pattern established itself over years. I would find a cat, hide it, love it, need it. Alina would discover it, always at a moment of defiance, always when I had asserted something of myself. A therapy appointment I refused to cancel. A friend she disapproved of. A grade that wasn't perfect but was honestly mine. The cat would disappear. The excuse was always the same. Escaped. Ran away. Cats are ungrateful. I knew, I always knew. I heard the sounds at night. I saw Carlos with the shovel in the garden. I found collars in the garbage, buried under coffee grounds, hidden from sight but not from my searching fingers. But I was a child, then a teenager, then a young adult who had learned that knowing and saying were different things. That speaking the truth brought worse consequences than enduring the lie. There was Luna, the black cat I found at 11, who disappeared when I told Alina I wanted to live with my grandmother. There was Estrella, the white kitten at 13, who vanished after I refused to attend a church retreat. There was Rayo, the gray tabby at 14, who was gone when I came home from my first real date with a boy Alina hadn't approved. Each disappearance was a lesson. Each lesson was a brick in the wall of my silence. The cats were my only rebellion. I kept finding them, kept loving them, kept needing something that was mine alone in a house where nothing was permitted to be mine. And Alina kept using them, kept killing them, kept teaching me that attachment was weakness, that love was leverage, that anything I cared for could be taken, destroyed, turned into a weapon against my will. Carlos filmed everything. Not the killings, he wasn't present for those or pretended not to be. He filmed the aftermath. My face when I found the empty space where a cat had been. My hands searching through trash. My tears, my screams, my dramatic reactions that he would later play back to me, narrating my own grief as if it were a performance he was critiquing. See how you look. he'd say, showing me footage of my 12-year-old self sobbing over Luna's collar. This is why people don't take you seriously. This is why you need to control yourself. I didn't know he kept the videos. I didn't know he organized them, cataloged them, uploaded them to a family cloud account with tags and dates and descriptions. Julieta 11, Luna. Julieta 13, Estrella. Julieta 14, Rayo. A collection of my grief, my breaking points, my moments of purest pain preserved for purposes I couldn't imagine. The 16th birthday was the culmination. I had been in therapy for 2 years, the longest I'd managed to sustain it, thanks to Dr. Morales's persistence and my grandmother's secret financial support. Alina had been escalating her pressure, her prayers becoming more pointed, her comments about airing family business becoming more frequent. On my birthday, she demanded I cancel my appointment for a family dinner that was really a performance of her martyrdom, her sacrifice, her perfect motherhood that I was ruining with my drama. I refused. For the first time, I truly refused. I said I would go to therapy and I would come back for cake, and if that wasn't acceptable, I wouldn't come back at all. Alina smiled. The same smile from the garage, from the breakfast table, from every cat disappearance. We'll see, she said. I went to therapy. I talked about boundaries, about autonomy, about the possibility of leaving home at 18, of escaping, of building a life that wasn't defined by my mother's approval. Dr. Morales was encouraging, careful, supportive. She didn't know about the cats. I had never told her. I was too ashamed, too certain that my attachment to animals was childish, too trained to see my own needs as excessive. When I came home, the house was quiet, too quiet. No music, no television, no sounds of dinner preparation. I found Alina in the living room, sitting calmly, hands folded. She looked up and smiled. Happy birthday, Julieta. I made you a special dinner. But first, I need to show you something. She led me to the bathroom. The door was closed. I knew before she opened it what I would find. I knew in the way that victims know, in the way that bodies know danger before minds can process it, in the way that I had learned to know at 8 and 9 and 11 and 13 and 14. Saul Roman II was in the bathtub. Orange like the first Saul, the one who had started everything. He was wet still, his eyes open and clouded. The water was pink. Alina's hands were dry, carefully dried, methodically cleaned. She had planned this. She had prepared for this. She had waited for my defiance and prepared the consequence. I told you, she said, her voice gentle, reasonable, the voice of a mother explaining a necessary punishment. I told you that your drama affects everyone. Now look what you made me do. Carlos appeared in the doorway. He had his phone out. He was filming, not the cat, me, my face, my reaction. The moment of my breaking, I screamed. I don't remember what I screamed. I remember hitting Alina, my fists connecting with her chest, her arms, her face. I remember Carlos pulling me back, not roughly, not with anger, but with the practiced patience of someone who had filmed this before, who knew exactly how long to let the scene continue before intervening. I remember my own voice, off camera, after Carlos had pulled me away, after Alina had left the room, after I was alone with the body of a cat who had trusted me, who had loved me, who had died because I had tried to love myself enough to say no. I'm going to kill them all, I said, not to anyone, to the air, to the universe, to the promise I was making to a self I couldn't yet imagine being real. Carlos captured it. He kept the audio, he uploaded it to the cloud, he tagged it, Julieta 16 Saul Roman II drama threat. I stopped defying after that. I canceled therapy. I attended the family dinner. I ate the cake. I smiled for the photographs. I became the daughter Alina wanted, the one who didn't make scenes, who didn't need therapy, who didn't attach to cats or people or anything that could be used against her. I went to the university they chose. I married the man they approved at 22. I divorced him at 24 when he turned out to be exactly like them, controlling and filming and using my reactions as weapons. I moved to a city 3 hours away. I became a photographer specializing in animals, in the creatures I couldn't touch without nausea but could capture through a lens, through distance, through the safety of glass and technology. I didn't have cats. I didn't have pets. I didn't have anything that could be taken. I existed in a carefully constructed emptiness, a life of surfaces and appearances, of professional success and personal isolation. My photographs were beautiful, acclaimed, published in magazines and exhibited in galleries. Critics praised my emotional distance, my clinical precision, my ability to capture vulnerability without being consumed by it. They didn't know I was photographing my own emptiness, my own unreachability, my own carefully maintained isolation. Sombra found me when I was 28. I was walking to my apartment late, after a gallery opening where I had smiled and nodded and felt nothing. He was in an alley, black, half-starved, with eyes that trusted nothing. Exactly like Saul, like Luna, like Estrella, like Rayo, like every cat I had ever loved and lost. I walked past him. I kept walking. I made it to my door, unlocked it, stepped inside. And then I went back. I don't know why. I had trained myself not to care, not to attach, not to provide leverage. But something in his eyes, something in his refusal to trust, something in his survival despite everything, reached me. I fed him. I took him to a vet. I brought him to my apartment, where no pets were allowed, where I would have to hide him, where I would have to risk everything I had built to protect him. I told no one. Not my colleagues, not my few friends, not my family, who I saw only on obligatory holidays where I performed the role of recovered daughter, of grateful child, of someone who had learned her lesson. Sombra was my secret, my rebellion, myself, hidden in a studio apartment, fed before dawn, photographed in the golden light of afternoons when I should have been working. For 3 years I had something. For 3 years I was someone. For 3 years I existed beyond the performance, beyond the emptiness, beyond the carefully maintained isolation that had kept me safe. Then Elena noticed. I don't know how. A photograph in the background of a social media post. A comment from a neighbor who had seen me carrying litter. The intuition of a predator who knows her prey's patterns. She called me casual, conversational, asking about my life, my work, my little friends. I denied everything. I was too careful. I had learned too well. But Elena didn't need confirmation. She needed opportunity. I was traveling for a photography assignment, a 3-day shoot in another city. I had arranged for a trusted friend to feed Sombra, to check on him, to maintain the secret. Elena found out. She appeared at my apartment. She had a key, family emergency, she told the building manager. My daughter asked me to check on her cat. I came home to an empty apartment. Sombra was gone. In his place on the kitchen table was his collar and a USB drive. I knew. I didn't need to watch. I knew what was on the drive, but I watched anyway. I sat in my empty apartment, in the silence that was too familiar, and I watched my mother kill my cat while my father filmed, and I heard my own voice from 15 years ago, promising to kill them all, and I understood that I had never broken free. I had only extended the leash, but something was different this time. I was 31. I had a career, I had a voice. I had followers, connections, a platform, and I had access to the family cloud. My father had added me to the family account when I was 12, when sharing was caring. When he wanted to monitor my photographs, my growth, my development, I had never removed myself. I had never thought to check what else was stored there. In my grief, in my rage, in the carefully controlled emptiness that was cracking open, I logged in. The collection was organized, methodical, comprehensive. Carlos had documented every cat, every disappearance, every reaction. But he had also documented more. Conversations between Elena and Carlos, planning the timing, selecting the targets, discussing my progress. The therapy is making her resistant, we need to escalate. The university friend is problematic, should we intervene? The marriage is good, he understands control. And the videos, not just my reactions, the killings themselves. Elena, drowning cats in bathtubs, in sinks, in buckets. Carlos, filming from the doorway, sometimes assisting, sometimes directing, always preserving. The collection spanned 15 years. 7 cats, 7 deaths, 7 lessons in obedience. But the video of Saul Roman II, the 16th birthday, had more. After Carlos pulled me away, after Elena left, after I made my promise, the camera continued recording. Carlos had set it down, forgotten it, or perhaps he had become so accustomed to documenting that he didn't notice it was still running. The audio captured Elena and Carlos in the hallway, discussing their strategy. She's getting worse, Elena said. The therapy is making her resistant, we need to escalate. She's 16, Carlos replied. We can hold her until university. Then we select the husband, someone who understands. And if she continues, the next time it's not a cat, the neighbor's dog, the neighbor's child. There are limits that are better learned with blood that isn't your own. I listened to this, my 31-year-old self, my professional self. I carefully constructed successful self, and I felt something crack. Not my composure, not my control, something deeper, the wall itself, the foundation of the house I had built on their terms. I didn't confront them, not directly. Not with the police, though I considered it. Not with a lawyer, though I consulted one. The statute of limitations was complex. The evidence was complicated by my presence in the family cloud. the system was designed to protect families like mine, respectable, religious, well-connected. Instead, I used their collection against them. I edited the videos. I added context. Elena's voice planning escalations. Carlos's voice discussing selection of husbands, the progression from cats to threats against neighbors. I created a series, anonymous but traceable, titled The Cat Collection. I posted it in true crime forums, in animal activist communities, in survivor support groups, in places where the pattern would be recognized, where the method would be understood, where the collection that Carlos had built as a tool of control would become a weapon of exposure. The series went viral. Not for the shock, though there was shock, but for the pattern. Other survivors recognized the technique, using pets to train obedience, filming reactions to document breaking points, gradual escalation of threats, the family that performs normalcy while destroying your capacity to love. I was not alone. There were thousands of us, scattered across families like mine, trained in isolation, taught that attachment was weakness, that love was leverage, that anything we cared for could be taken. But I did something more. I contacted Diana, my perfect sister, the one who had never defied, who had never questioned, who had built her life on the foundation of my breaking. I showed her the videos, not the edited series, the raw collection, the cloud, everything Diana didn't know, she had never known. She had 2 children, a dog, a life built on the assumption that our family was normal, that my drama was my own flaw, that Elena's prayers were genuine, that Carlos's filming was harmless documentation. She watched the videos and something broke in her. The same breaking I had experienced at 8 and 9 and 11 and 13 and 14 and 16, the breaking that she had been protected from by being perfect, by being compliant, by being the daughter they didn't need to teach. She confronted Elena, not for the cats, for her children, for her dog, for the escalation she had never noticed but now recognized. The times Elena had concerned herself with Diana's parenting, the times Carlos had documented family moments that seemed normal, but now, with context, looked like surveillance, the gradual, careful, methodical extension of control that had been practiced on me and was now being applied to the next generation. Diana's confrontation was the crack that broke the dam. She was the perfect daughter, the one whose defiance mattered, whose compliance had value, whose breaking would be a loss rather than an expected outcome. When she restricted Elena's access to her children, when she demanded explanations, when she threatened exposure, the family system that had relied on her complicity began to collapse. Carlos lost his job when the videos reached his firm. Not the edited series, the raw collection, leaked by someone who had access to the cloud, who had watched and preserved and waited. His organized documentation, his careful cataloging, his methodical preservation of evidence became the evidence against him. He was not arrested. The legal system was slow, complicated, protective of respectable men. But he was exposed. His name became associated with the method, the pattern, the collection that had been his pride and became his shame. Elena lost her community. The church group that had admired her devotion, the prayer circle that had supported her difficult daughter, the religious community that had validated her martyrdom. When parents recognized the method, when survivors identified the pattern, when the devoted mother became the predator who uses pets to train obedience, she became isolated, not imprisoned, not prosecuted, simply alone in the house where she had performed her control, with no audience, no validation, no one to teach. I didn't adopt another cat, not immediately. The nausea persisted, the conditioned response, the physical rejection of the love that had been used against me. But I opened a studio. Somber studio. Specialized in portraits of rescued animals, of survivors of abuse, of reconstituted families, of the creatures and people who had learned to love again after everything had been taken. Each session included a story. Each story included a lesson. Your love is not a weakness. It is a strength that was stolen from you. Reclaim it. Diana brought her children. She brought her dog. She brought her own story of fear that she now named, that she now spoke, that she now used to protect rather than to hide. It was not reconciliation, it was alliance. It was 2 sisters who understood they had been trained to destroy each other, choosing not to. The children played with the animals. The dog, a golden retriever named Luz, who had been rescued from a similar situation, who had learned to trust again, who represented the possibility that damage was not destiny. Diana watched her children with Luz, watched them love without fear, watched them attach without the knowledge that attachment could be weaponized. It's not forgiveness, Diana said to me once, watching her daughter bury her face in Luz's fur. It's not understanding, it's just choosing different for them, because of them. I understood. The choice was not about Alina or Carlos. It was not about justice or revenge or exposure. It was about the children, about the animals, about the love that could exist without being used, without being threatened, without being documented and cataloged and preserved as leverage. Years later, I found a cat in the street. Orange like Saul, fearful like Sombra. I photographed him. I didn't bring him home, but I fed him. I visited him. I gave him a name, Amainser, Dawn, not because he was mine, but because he was his own. Because I could love without possessing, connect without controlling, care without creating vulnerability. He was not mine, he was his own. And that was the difference between property and connection, between control and love, between surviving and living. If someone taught you that your love was leverage, that your attachment was weakness, that anything you cared for could be taken and destroyed to teach you obedience, hear me. Your love was never the weakness. Their use of it was the crime. Your capacity to care, to attach, to feel deeply was never the problem. Their exploitation of that capacity was the violation. You can reclaim it, not immediately. Not without nausea, without fear, without the conditioned response that makes love feel dangerous. But gradually, carefully, with boundaries and protection and the knowledge that you are not the child who had no power. You are the adult who can choose. That's my story. If it spoke to you, comment below. If you're still learning to love without fear, tell me. I'll read every word. Subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.